Hey, what's going on? Hope you're doing good today. I'm making this video for anybody who is doing research, who has been on their adoption journey, if you're an adoptee or if you're an adopted parent or just related to adoption somehow. I am making this video to recommend the best books that I have actually read. And I have a lot of books here, but I'm gonna just be talking about the top 5. I'll show all the books that I have here, but I mean, I could probably make an hour-long video on the books that I have here, but I'm gonna go through the top 5 that I have here and explain why. But I'm making this video to help anybody kind of narrow down that decision. If they're having trouble, like, oh, what is the best books? As an adoptee, I was adopted at 4 years old, fostered from a very, I don't even know, birth till 4, I guess. And then I got adopted in my family, Latino into a white family. And there was just a bunch of unanswered questions and unaddressed trauma to this day that I had to find out on my own, which was a seemingly impossible task. So if I could help anybody out there save themselves from any sort of like issues you're going through from adoption that you may not be aware of, maybe don't know how to handle, a lot of these books have a ton of information in them, so let's just get right into it. Number 1, The Primal Wound. This one is the Bible for a lot of adoptees. If you're an adoptee and you haven't read this, I would highly recommend it. As soon as I read this, I was like, this is everything I could never put into words that I wanted to say with my actual words, with my mouth, but it just came out as anger, it came out as rage, and I didn't understand what was happening to me. A lot of adoptees, there's this unspoken thing where we're just being gaslit by well-meaning people in our family where, oh, you should be grateful, even therapists. Oh, well, aren't you grateful to have a family and, not be in the foster system? And, oh, how lucky you are. You got a new family that you couldn't have had, if you weren't adopted. That's so lucky. Like, they only see the gain when adoptees, my experience from what I've read and other adoptees, it's built on loss. And this book, Primal Wound, goes in depth about that loss, why we are traumatized, and a lot of adoptees feel that other people think that they don't have trauma and they don't have problems and that they're just blank slates that should be lucky and grateful. And honestly, just be grateful and shut the fuck up was my message, and that did me no deeds. It didn't do me any good. It didn't help me at all. It basically made me lose my voice. I really am a very, very quiet person, and I grew up from like ages 1 to 7. I was very, very outspoken, and if you want to help your kid have the best chance at a meaningful life, I would say this is the number 1 book. This has most of all the information that adoptees probably could identify with, and adopted parents could use to kind of get it if you're wondering what the hell's going on with your kid, if they're acting angry or if they're doing bad behaviors type of thing. Nancy Newton Very, I don't know how to pronounce that, Verrier, whatever. Great book, find it on Amazon. This one, it is not an adoption book, but this is for parents, and I am a parent of a 2-year-old son, and he's wild. He says no like 30 seconds out of every 30 seconds. He just says it like every 30 seconds. His just favorite word is no, whether it's something he wants or not. And this one, if my parents had this and they knew how to actually listen and acknowledge and validate my needs that I couldn't really validate and acknowledge myself. I didn't even know what was going on. Validation and acknowledgement for adoptees is probably the number 1 thing that is missing from communication with their adoptive parents. When we say like, oh, I don't know why I feel so depressed. Oh, you don't need to feel like that. You're lucky. I saw a therapist and I'm like, I'm having such a hard time. I feel like, I'm really living in like a dark, troubled world. Like I'm in hell kind of, which it did feel like that for me. And they're like, oh, you don't feel like that. You need to be grateful. Like stuff like that. This book, game changer for me as a parent. And I wish my parents read this. Very, very, very helpful. Yeah. I would say it's not adoption related, but it is in a way if you want to validate and acknowledge your kid and kind of have that communication where you can enter their world. They'll feel seen, they'll feel heard, they'll feel acknowledged, they'll feel validated, which is, you can't put a price tag on that for a parent-child relationship. Number 3, 20 things adoptive kids wish their adoptive parents knew. This one was really, really important to me. I've read this one twice already. I think I'm either on my second or third time. I think I'm on my third time, but I'm pretty sure I read this at least twice. Sherry Eldridge. So 20 things adoptive kids wish their adoptive parents knew. This one, she goes into things that we wish we could say. I'll just read one of them. I suffered a profound loss before I was adopted. You are not responsible. That's one chapter. I need to be taught that I have special needs arising from adoption loss, of which I need not be ashamed. That's another one. If my parents knew this when I was growing up, this would have been life-changing for me because they had no idea what they were doing. They had no idea what they were dealing with, that I even had any trauma, that I had any loss. And I just wish that they would have 20 things that I wish they would have known. Game changer. If you're an adoptive parent, even an adoptee, as adoptee reading this, it helped me understand even what I was dealing with and what I was experiencing, and I didn't even understand what I was dealing with. Number 4, The Explosive Child. This one, I'm actually halfway through it, but this one is great for both adoptees and I think even more beneficial as adoptive parents. If your kid has really weird behaviors, I know I had a lot of bad behaviors because I didn't know how to deal with the loss that went unacknowledged, and I was Latino in a white family, and that went unacknowledged. All these issues that my parents were like, oh, he doesn't have any real issues, we're raising him just like us. In a white neighborhood, I was the only Mexican kid that was running around, but they didn't understand that I was experiencing racism and all this trauma from being separated from my biological family, which in turn made me really pissed off when I tried to talk about it, and I got really obvious bullshit answers, and it made me angry. So I didn't know how to speak about it, I didn't know how to act, I didn't know how to deal with the adoption and the loss and nobody acknowledging me and feeling extremely left out, extremely isolated because I feel like I didn't have anybody to talk to, nobody to understand me. This one goes into how to build skills for your kid and how to look at it from a way of, oh, this kid isn't trying to be like a little dick or a little asshole. I know that with my son, I look at him sometimes, I'm like, man, he's a freaking asshole right now. Like, the fuck is he thinking? And, it's not that they're trying to be mean to you. It's not that they're trying to be annoying. It's not that they're trying to do this personal attack on you. It's, hey, I need to be taught these skills that I don't have. I don't know how to deal with this, but they don't know how to say that. They're just going to throw stuff. They're going to hit you. They're going to break walls. I know I used to throw dumbbells through my window when I was very young. Or not window, but through my door. I would destroy things because I was so angry. And my parents were like, oh, what's wrong with Eric? He's just crazy. And I'm like suffering this huge, crazy primal wound, loss of my family. Anybody that looks like me don't know what my race is, and everybody else looks like each other. And they're like, man, this is a great life we're giving Eric. I don't know why he has anything to complain about. He's so ungrateful. So yeah, I would throw shit through my window, punch holes in the wall. Explosive child. That was me. This one will help a lot. Number 5, if I had to choose 5, I would choose another one by Sherry Eldridge, 20 Life Transformers, Life Transforming Choices Adoptees Need to Make. This one's the second edition. Man, this one's great. I think I've only read this one once, but it has a lot of insights on what adoptees can do to basically identify what the problems are. It gives a lot of, what are they called, like tasks or drills, and it basically tells you how to heal. Make an anger chart. List the primary people in your life with whom you've had anger issues. Then write misplaced anger or healthy issues, or healthy anger. Write letters to and from your birth mother. I know when I did that one, that was a big game changer. It is really, really good. If you have an adoptive child and they don't identify with anybody and nobody understands them, it's going to be a very, very isolated world that they live in. I know for me, I am 39. I just turned 39 last week, and until the last 6 months, I was 38, until I finally found an adoptee that I actually said, hey, that's just like me. They're speaking my language, and it's kind of unfair. I feel like I've had a lot of issues because I feel like nobody on this planet understood me, and everybody told me to shut the fuck up and you're being ungrateful, and you know, the normal adoptee responses that you get because you're lucky and saved from the foster system. You don't get a voice, you don't get listened to, you don't have anybody understand you, and it is very, very limited adoption trauma educated therapists out there. So these are my top 5 books. I'll show you the rest of them. There's some honorable mentions here, but if you can get a clear picture. Adoptees Coming of Age, it's a good one. The Connected Child is a really good one. Lost and Found. I think it's Billie Jean Lifton. I don't know. Betty. Oh my God, Billie Jean. Billie Jean. I'm on a roll today. Being Adopted. Betty Jean Lifton, Journey of the Adopted Self, Adopting the Hurt Child. This one's actually, I just started this one, and this one's for like seriously abused kids. It kind of freaked me out a little bit because I was never abused. I was never sexually abused. I was never beaten. I just have trauma from the act of being adopted and being fostered until 4. The nobody looking like me, and the separation from my biological family. But if you have an abused child, if you're adopting an older kid from the foster care system, this one is I'd recommend this one. And just some other books for adoptees. David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me. I actually have the audiobook. Number 1 probably book outside of adoption related books that helped me. Because he talks about being he was the only black kid in his white school when he was growing up. He experienced racism completely alone. His dad beat the shit out of him. And that was the first person I've ever heard talk about being the only. And I was like, oh, maybe that's going on with me. And this was like 3 or 4 years ago. I've always been the only, and everybody's told me to shut the fuck up and you're lucky. So being gaslit can really mess you up especially when you're adopted from birth or 4 years old or at a young age. Being told that you're being ungrateful can really mess you up, because you can start really, really thinking that, you know, you're the one to blame, and all this unaddressed stuff goes on inside you, and it's just not helpful for a person that doesn't really understand what loss is. You know, you grow up and you're like, everybody's telling me how great of a life I have. Why do I feel so awful? And it's like these 2 separate worlds you're living, and you got to have this fake self where you're like this good kid, or you have 2 choices. You can either rebel, which what I did, or you can conform, which oh, my parents love me there, I'm a great kid. And neither of those is helping us grow or heal. Mastery of Self. That one's just a really great book. Helped me a lot. Hunt, Gather, Parent. That's a great book on parenting. The Connected Parent. It's like The Connected Child, but for parents. Mindset. Growth Mindset. Oh my God. Can't live without it. If I had a fixed mindset, I'd probably be dead by now. Not even joking. Goodbye Vigilance. Hypervigilance. Dr. Spock's books. That's the old school stuff. Let's see. This one I didn't like. This one is the author of the Primal Wound, Coming Home to Self. I don't know. I just didn't like it. Secrets of the Adopted Mother. I was really scared to read this, but I read this last month. Kind of crazy, but it's a very good book. Growing Up Again. I haven't read this, but if you have any more recommendations, please let me know. I'm doing all these videos unscripted off the top of my head, so if I fumble and don't speak clearly, it's because I am very nervous talking about this subject. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. I really genuinely am making these videos to help any adoptee or adopted family heal in some sort of way, because I know how isolating the incident can be for adoptees. I was at the point where I didn't want to live anymore for decades. I'm 39 now, and from about the age of 7 or 8, when I found out I was adopted, it just went straight downhill from there. And then, trying to figure out what my problem was, and just all kinds of stuff. And I just found out that adoption can cause trauma. It's way too late. 38, there's other people finding it out earlier, and I'm just trying to help be a voice that you need to find out that adoption can cause trauma. It is real. You're experiencing real trauma. Being separated from your biological family is no joke, and it can lead to a bunch of issues and get more complicated if it goes unaddressed, unacknowledged, and even dismissed, saying that it's not even a problem and you should be grateful. That is no way to talk to a person that has lost their family. So I hope I can help. If you have any more recommendations or any questions on adoption, please write it down in the comments. I really want to help anybody with any specific question. I can only talk from my experience, so I can't speak for every adoptee or every issue out there, just my own experience. And I've been through a lot, so I hope I can help.